Pa always thought that if the universe wanted to send him a sign, it would look like a giant dumpling falling from the sky. Instead, it started with a gong. It was a bright afternoon in the Jade Palace courtyard. The Valley of Peace spread out below like a painting, all green hills and silver rivers. Birds chirped, banners fluttered, and in the middle of it all, the dragon warrior was trying a spinning triple kick he had absolutely not mastered. Focus, puh, Master Shifu called. Balance, control, grace. I have all three, Pa shouted, spinning through the air. They're just on shuffle mode. His foot missed the training dummy by a mile and hammered into the ancient jade gong behind it. The gong rocked. Pa landed, stumbled, and watched in horror as the giant disc tilted forward. Oh no. No. The gong fell on him like a lid on a pot. The courtyard rang with a deafening clang. From under the vibrating metal, Po's muffled voice groaned. Totally meant to do that. Shifu sighed the very long sigh of a master who had used up all his normal size years ago. Again, Pa. The dragon warrior wriggled out, rubbing his ears. He opened his mouth to crack a joke, and the world changed. The breeze stopped. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, like fingers reaching for him. Above the Jade Palace, the clear blue sky twisted as if someone had grabbed it and wrung it like a cloth. Colors bled, blue into purple, purple into a churning, dirty green. At the very center, directly over Pa, reality folded in on itself. A circle appeared in the air, hanging vertically, crackling with sparking green and black energy. It was like staring into storm clouds and ink and something much older than both. Tigress was the first to move. Pa, get back. He tried. His paws slid across the stones as an invisible wind sucked at his fur. The circle pulsed, and the pull became a grip. I'm not doing this, he yelped. My butt is walking on its own. The furious five ran toward him. Shifu leaped, paw outstretched. Pa reached back, fingertips brushing Shifu's. The circle snapped shut around him like the closing jaws of some cosmic beast. The Jade Palace vanished. The last thing Pa saw was Shifu's eyes, sharp and worried, shrinking into a pinprick of light. Then there was only falling. He tumbled through a tunnel of madness. Color smeared across his vision in impossible shades. Voices screamed, whispered, laughed in languages he didn't know. He saw flashes, a planet cracking apart, titanic war machines striding through fire, rivers that ran red. Pa hugged his knees to his chest as he spun. Okay, Pa, breathe, he gasped. You survived Tai Lung, Shin, Kai, your dad's special chili. You can survive this. The tunnel spat him out like a seed from a fruit. He slammed into ground hard enough to knock the breath out of him. Pebbles cut into his back. Ash filled his nose. For a moment he just lay there, staring at a sky that looked sick. It was dark but not like night. Black clouds churned overhead, veined with red lightning that forked silently from horizon to horizon. The air burned his throat. The wind carried the stink of smoke, oil, and something metallic and sour like old blood. Pa pushed himself up and froze. He was in the middle of a war. The landscape was a graveyard of machines and stone. Craters pockmarked the ground. Ruined towers jutted like broken bones. On one side of a shattered plain, enormous armored warriors advanced in formation. They wore blue power armor covered in golden eagles and skulls, each one towering over Pa like a walking fortress. Their guns roared with thunder, spitting chains of explosive fire. On the other side, like a wave of nightmares, came things that looked like warriors but felt like nightmares made solid. Armor twisted into spikes, symbols carved like wounds into their plates, horns and chains and burning eyes. Some carried snarling chain axes, some crackling blades of hateful light. Between the two forces, the ground was being chewed to pieces. Pa barely had time to process any of it before something shrieked through the air toward him. Instinct shoved everything else aside. He threw himself sideways as a burning chunk of metal slammed into the dirt where he'd been kneeling, showering him with sparks. A voice boomed nearby, deep and mechanical. Unidentified Xeno's life form. Target acquired. Pa rolled onto his back. A giant in blue armor loomed over him, weapon barrel tracking down. Glowing red lenses stared from the smooth, skull-marked helmet. Pa raised his paws. Whoa. Hi. Let's not vaporize the panda, okay? I come in peace and carbohydrates. Before the giant could decide whether or not to shoot him, the line buckled. A massive warrior in red and brass armor, horned helmet blazing with hateful light, crashed into the blue soldier and knocked him sideways. They went down in a tangle of armor and roaring chainsword. The battlefield shifted around P like a storm. He watched the blue warrior grapple with the attacker, trying to force the snarling chainsword away from his throat. The red-coated giant laughed, pushing the teeth closer and closer. Poe's heart slammed in his chest. This wasn't a training dummy. This wasn't some dream. If he did nothing, that man would die. A tiny, terrified voice in his head screamed at him to hide, to stay small and unnoticed in this nightmare. Another voice, quiet, steady, sounding suspiciously like Sherfu, said, "Protect those who cannot protect themselves." Pa moved. He sprinted across the ash, leaped, and landed feet first on the red warrior's pauldron. The giant jerked in surprise. Pa ran up his helmet, spun in the air, and slammed both paws down on the top of the horned skull with a shout. Chi flared from his palms, bright gold against the sick red light of the sky. The horned helmet dented like a metal drum. The red warrior toppled, chain blades skittering away. Pa landed in a wobbling crouch, staring at his own paws. "Whoa," he panted. "Okay. Either I got way stronger, or this guy skipped armor day." The blue warrior shoved the red giant away and rose with a grinding of servos. For a long moment he simply stared at Pa. "What manner of abomination are you?" His voice growled through the helmet's vox. Pa swallowed. Hi. I'm Pa. Professionally, I'm a dragon warrior. Personally, I'm very lost." There was no time for more questions. The tide of red and brass surged forward, howling. The blue warriors, ultramarines, though Pa didn't know that name yet, tightened their formation, bolters barking. Explosions tore into the oncoming tide, but the enemy kept coming, like rage given armor. Pa backed up until his shoulders hit a chunk of broken wall. He watched a blue warrior fall under a hammer blow, another dragged down by clawed gauntlets. For every nightmare that dropped, two more seemed to take its place. Fear squeezed his chest. This wasn't his fight. These weren't his people. Somewhere, far away, his friends were probably searching for him. But when he saw a wounded soldier dragged behind cover by his squadmate, saw the way even these giant walking tanks moved to shield one another without hesitation, something clicked. They were like the Furious Five in heavy metal. A thought came to him, half ridiculous, half true. If the universe dragged me here, maybe it had a reason. He took a deep breath, felt the chaotic energy of this place pressing down on him like a weight, and reached past it to the quiet center he'd learned to find in the Jade Palace. The chi was still there. Different, but there. Pa stepped out from behind the wall. "Hey, spiky guys," he shouted. A few horned helmets turned toward him. Up close they were even more horrifying. Symbols carved into armor, chains hung with trophies Pa didn't want to think about, eyes burning with sick light. Poe's legs shook. He smiled anyway. "You picked the wrong panda." They charged. The first one swung a chain axe that roared like an enraged beast. Pa ducked under it, feeling the teeth brush his ears, and snapped a paw into the warrior's knee joint. The giant stumbled. Pa used the momentum, rolled under his own arm, and flipped the armored brute over his shoulder, slamming him into the ground. Another came in with a clawed fist. Pa jumped, planting his feet on the gauntlet, then ran up the arm, spun, and drove a heel kick into the side of the helmet. Metal cracked. The warrior dropped. To anyone watching, it looked ridiculous and beautiful. A chubby black and white blur weaving through towering armored monsters, turning their own weight against them, leaving dented plate and stunned enemies in his wake. To Pa, it felt like he was 2 breaths from passing out. "Don't stop moving," he told himself. "If you stop, you think. If you think, you panic. If you panic, you cry. And no one wants to see a crying dragon warrior." The blue-armored soldiers noticed. Even in the roar of guns, they began to give him space, adjusting their fire to support his strange dance. Bolter fire hammered enemies Pa had just thrown off balance. A chainsword carved through one about to stab him in the back. For a few frantic minutes it worked. The red tide slowed. Then the sky tore open. Reality split in the air above the battlefield, forming a wound of swirling fire. Something stepped through, a towering figure twice the size of any warrior. Armor fused with twisted flesh, horns like black towers, wings of ragged shadow. Its sword was a slab of burning metal the length of a house. Its presence alone made the air colder and hotter at the same time. Pa felt its gaze like a physical weight. A demon prince, one of the blue warriors, whispered over the vox. "Khorne, take us." The monster's voice rolled across the field like thunder. "Blood for the blood god," it roared. "Skulls for the skull throne." Its burning eyes locked onto Pa. "And the bright soul," it hissed, pointing its blazing sword directly at the panda. "He is mine." Poe's mouth went dry. "Okay," he croaked. "Why am I suddenly feeling very specifically hunted?" The demon prince leaped, landing with such force the shockwave knocked warriors from their feet. It carved a swath through blue armor, sending giants flying. Nothing seemed to stop it. Bullets burst against its hide, psychic lightning fractured and bled away. Pa stood, paws clenched, watching it tear through the line. Every instinct begged him to run in the opposite direction forever. Instead, he took one step forward. Then another. By the time his brain caught up, he was sprinting straight at a god of war. The demon's flaming sword came down like the end of the world. Pa slid on the ash, diving under the blow so close he felt the heat singe his whiskers. The blade smashed into the ground behind him, throwing up a wall of fire. Pa popped up on the other side, panting. The demon's head turned with a grinding of bone and metal. "You dare," it growled. Pa swallowed. "Apparently," he said, "yes." It swung again, a horizontal sweep that would have bisected a tank. Pa jumped, tucking into a ball, letting the sword pass under him before he slammed both feet onto the flat of the blade. The impact rang like a bell. For a heartbeat, the massive sword dipped. Just enough. The demon's balance shifted. Pa planted a paw, ran up the blade, and launched himself at the monster's chest, driving a chi-filled punch into its armor. Golden light exploded. The demon actually stumbled. Pain lanced through Poe's arm. It was like punching a mountain made of knives. He bounced off, hit the ground, rolled, and came up seeing double. The demon laughed, smoke curling from its fanged mouth. "You burn bright, little soul," it rumbled. "I will enjoy extinguishing you." It moved faster than something that size had any right to. A clawed hand shot out and closed around Poe's body. The world narrowed to crushing pressure and the smell of burning metal. Pa gasped as the grip squeezed the air from his lungs. He could feel its essence now, like a cold, endless scream pressing against his own chi, trying to smother it. Far away, over the vox, a new voice cut through the chaos. Calm, controlled, layered with something other. "Panda," it said, and the word echoed inside Poe's skull. One of the blue warriors stood below, armor covered in glowing runes, staff crackling in his hands. His eyes were lit from within. "You are not of this realm. Your spirit resonates beyond the warp. Draw on it. Remember who you are." Poe's vision dimmed at the edges. Remember who he was. Right now he was a panda-flavored stress ball in the fist of a demon. But the librarian's words sank deeper than the fear. Remember who you are. He thought of the Jade Palace, of the valley waking under the sunrise, of Master Sherfu's rare smiles, Tigress's reluctant laughter, Mr. Ping's proud tears when Pa first wore the Dragon Scroll's golden glow. He thought of noodles and fireworks and the moment he finally understood that being himself was his greatest strength. Breath, he told himself. Even now. Especially now. He inhaled as deeply as the crushing grip allowed. Somewhere inside the terror, he found a spark of calm. Chi answered. It flooded out from his center, through his arms and legs, into the demon's claws. The monster snarled as golden light flared where blackness had ruled. Cracks spiderwebbed across its corrupted armor. What? It began. Poe's fear twisted into something else. Not anger. Not hate. Something stubborn, bright. Furious that this thing thought it could break him. You wanted my soul, he gasped. Here. Have some. The light erupted. From below, the librarian thrust his staff upward, psychic energy latching onto Poe's chi, amplifying it. For a moment, Panda and Psyker and something deeper all aligned. The burst tore through the demon's arm, racing along its body like a river of sunlight. The prince screamed, dropping Poe. The panda tumbled, hit the ground hard, and rolled until he sprawled on his back, gasping. The demon staggered, armor cracking, flames guttering. Poe pushed himself up on shaking paws. Every muscle trembled. His fur stood on end, buzzing with leftover energy. He looked up at the towering monster, swaying, leaking shadows. He had one move left. One move that never failed, even if he barely understood why. He sprinted. The demon raised its sword for a final, clumsy strike. Poe jumped onto the hilt, ran up the arm again, and perched on the edge of its horned helmet, inches from those burning eyes. "What are you doing?" it snarled. "You cannot kill me. I am eternal." Poe formed his paws into a familiar shape around a random spike of armor, eyes narrowing. "Ever heard of the Wuxi finger hold?" he asked. The demon's eyes flickered with a rare, pure emotion. Fear. "What is?" "Skadoosh." He tugged. The world went silent. Then reality folded inward around the demon prince, collapsing like paper into a single point of blinding white and gold. A ring of energy raced outward, flattening ash, knocking warriors to their knees. Every lesser creature tied to the demon burst into dust. When the light faded, the monster was gone. Only a smoking crater remained, Poe lying in the middle of it, limbs spread, fur singed, chest heaving. A helmeted shadow leaned over him, blocking the broken sky. The blue warrior removed his helm, revealing a face scarred and stern but very much human. "I am Captain Severian of the Ultramarines," he said. "You have done what entire companies of space marines have failed to do. You banished a demon prince with your fingers." Poe coughed, smoke puffing from his mouth. "Yeah," he wheezed. "They're, very talented fingers." Severian glanced at the librarian, who nodded once in silent confirmation. "Our psyker tells me your spirit burned through the warp like a beacon," the captain said. "Ships lost in storms have found passage. For a moment, the darkness parted. Worlds will live because of what you did here." Poe blinked, dizzy. "I just didn't want anyone else to get squished." "That is what heroes say," Severian replied quietly. Medical servitors and apothecaries moved in, scanning Poe, muttering about unknown biology and resilient bone structure. He waved them off, struggling to his feet. "So, he said, looking up at the towering marine. "You wouldn't happen to know how to send very confused pandas back to their home valleys, would you?" Severian glanced at the roiling sky, where the warp still churned, though slightly less violently. "Our librarius believes the tear that brought you here can be traced," he said. "But this galaxy is full of those who would twist your gift to serve their own gods. Until we can return you, you will be a target." Poe followed his gaze around the battlefield. The Ultramarines were gathering their dead, tending their wounded. There was grief there, but also a new glint in their eyes, something almost like belief. Back home, Master Sherfu had told him that being the Dragon Warrior wasn't about being the strongest. It was about what you chose to do with your strength. He thought about going home. Warm noodles, familiar faces, the steady drumbeat of his own world. His heart ached for it. He looked at these strangers, standing on a world that had forgotten what peace even felt like, and knew what his answer had to be. "If the universe dragged me here," Poe said softly, "maybe it needs me for a while." Severian frowned. "You would stay, knowing only war awaits you?" Poe smiled, tired but genuine. "Where I'm from, we fight too. Just, with more dumplings and fewer skull decorations. If I can bring even a little of that here, one laugh, one moment of calm, one soldier who remembers he's more than a weapon, then it's worth it." He shrugged, wincing as his shoulder popped. "Plus, I don't think your enemies are ready for the unstoppable power of Panda Chi." For the first time in a long time, the captain of the Ultramarines actually chuckled. "Very well, Poe of the Valley of Peace," he said. Until we find a way to send you home, you will fight beside us. He extended his colossal, scarred hand. Pa took it. The remaining Marines gathered, fists striking armor in salute. Thunder rolled across the broken plain. As they led him toward a waiting gunship, engines rumbling, one of the warriors leaned down, vox crackling. "These dumplings you spoke of," he rumbled, "can they be adapted into a field ration?" Pa grinned, exhaustion briefly forgotten. "Oh, you have no idea. Step 1, giant pot. Step 2, don't let me eat them all before the battle." The warrior actually laughed, a short, amazed sound, like he'd forgotten how. The gunship doors closed with a hiss. As it lifted off, Pa looked out at the burning horizon, at a galaxy trapped in endless war, and felt something stubborn ignite in his chest. Hope, loud and ridiculous and hungry. Somewhere beyond the madness of the warp, a small valley waited for its dragon warrior. One day, Pa would find his way back. But for now, Warhammer 40K had a panda. And the darkness, for the first time in a very long time, had a reason to be afraid.